A boy was born with psychic abilities and was known by the name M. Since birth, he could see spiritual energy and the souls of others. In addition, he could also see the colors of death and disease and sense a person's past and future. Then one day, the soul of a once-renowned scientist came to visit M. However, he did not mention his name, so we'll refer to him as S. This man confessed that many of the ideas he had proposed while alive, such as the belief that the dissolution of the body meant the end of consciousness, were entirely wrong. Now he regrets it and wants M to record this in his journal and share those mistaken ideas with the world. How serious must those mistakes have been for a scientist to return from the other side just to correct them? He said the reason he had mistakenly denied the existence of the soul was because he had fallen into the trap of inductive logic. The essence of inductive logic is to generalize from the specific to the general, which often leads to bias. But how can one generalize from just a part? For example, the crows we commonly see are all pitch black. From that, using inductive logic, we might conclude that all crows are black. However, there are also species of crows with white necks, commonly found in southeastern Africa. There are even white crows, considered auspicious birds that appear in Japan. So, it's clear that crows around the world are not as black as we might think. Therefore, the conclusion that the world is black like crows, derived through inductive logic, is a mistake. So what about the soul? How did people use inductive logic to reason that it doesn't exist? When it comes to the soul, ordinary people cannot see it with the naked eye. Therefore, humans mostly communicate with souls through psychic mediums. However, there are indeed some fake psychics who lack true abilities, or some genuine psychics who tend to add their own opinions and interpretations when conveying messages, which distorts the truth and easily causes people to lose faith in it. As a result, some believe that all spiritual phenomena are mere tricks and deceptions. Then they use inductive logic to conclude that the soul is nothing more than a product of imagination. Among them was scientist S. But now he has realized the truth because the most undeniable proof is standing right in front of the boy, the soul of S. So what is S's opinion on psychic ability? He considered channeling to be the ability to see higher and subtler vibrations in nature that the naked eye cannot perceive. How should this be understood? Seeing the boy's confusion, S further explained. When you look up at the sky, do you think it's just a vacuum with stars scattered here and there? In reality, the vacuum is filled with extremely tiny particles that vibrate at very high frequencies. Therefore, it appears empty to the eyes of ordinary people like most of us. Regarding the concept of a non-empty vacuum, discussions within the scientific community have long been lively around this issue. More than 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle believed that what seemed like a vacuum was not actually empty, but contained a substance called luminiferous ether. In the mid-19th century, physicist James Maxwell established the theory of electromagnetism, suggesting that light is an electromagnetic wave that travels through space at the speed of light. For light to propagate, there had to be a medium. Therefore, he believed that ether in the vacuum truly existed, and that electromagnetic waves were formed from the oscillations of the ether. However, in 1905, Einstein's theory of special relativity was introduced. This theory showed that the electromagnetic field itself is a form of matter, and electromagnetic waves are one of the forms of motion of this matter. It does not require a medium like ether to propagate. Thus, the ether theory was rejected. Yet 20 years later, British physicist Paul Dirac, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, believed that the vacuum could be viewed as a sea filled with electrons in all negative energy states, while the positively energized electrons move around on top of this sea. Later, another scientist, Carl Anderson, discovered this type of energy in the laboratory. The concept of a non-empty vacuum was once again accepted in the material world, and the ether returned once more in the form of the electron sea. In fact, both scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize for this groundbreaking discovery. However, research by physicists did not stop there. In 1964, British theoretical physicist Peter Higgs proposed that in a certain vacuum state, when what scholars call spontaneous symmetry breaking occurs within the vacuum, it could cause particles in the electromagnetic field to acquire mass, thus achieving something from nothing. This particle is known as the Higgs boson. In 2012, scientists at CERN discovered the Higgs boson at the Large Hadron Collider. Thanks to this, Higgs was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2013. Why is the Higgs boson so important? Because it solves one of the most fundamental problems in physics, the origin of mass, that is, how to create tangible things out of nothing. For this reason, the Higgs boson is also called the God particle, and we may explore it in greater detail when the opportunity arises in the future. It's worth mentioning that in Chinese Taoism, there is a concept that chaos gives birth to Wuji, and Wuji gives birth to Taiji, which has been confirmed by the Large Hadron Collider in the 21st century. Isn't that quite fascinating? Therefore, as a scientist, S believes that not only the vacuum, but the entire universe is filled with various types of matter, and that the structure of the universe is a world within a world, like a large wheel in a mechanical system that contains smaller wheels. Of course, humans cannot see ultra-microscopic matter. For example, the substances that make up his soul are so delicate that even Mr. Palmer, M's tutor, could not detect them. Yet the boy M, who exists beyond the perception of ordinary people, could. S's soul also said that people on Earth only know of three-dimensional space: length, width, and height. In reality, there are more dimensions in other spaces. For instance, the space in which he currently resides has one more dimension than human space, which he called penetration. After saying this, S turned to talk about the science of life. He said that modern scientists focus too much on form while neglecting the more essential part, which is life. According to their view, the more complex the biological structure, the higher the level of consciousness. For example, they believe that humans are more conscious and intelligent than frogs, because humans have more complex and refined organs and tissues than frogs. S believed this was a fallacy, because the truth is, life can exist without being attached to a body, and a body is merely a specific manifestation of a particular form of life. Everything in this world, as long as it has life and consciousness, even if humans cannot perceive it, still exists. For example, scientists believe that trees are alive but lack consciousness. Yet beings from the spiritual world know this is false, because even a tree possesses consciousness, however faint, as long as it is alive. In fact, M once saw an ancient tree spirit resembling a fairy tale elf with long, slender legs, a red hat, and a bark-colored body. Therefore, he knew that what S was saying was true. Mr. S continued speaking about astrology. He said, each type of element is home to a spirit: fire spirits, water spirits, wind spirits. Water and wind spirits can, to some extent, influence changes in the weather. And the sun is also a material state of a great spiritual being. Those who worshipped the sun god in ancient times were not ignorant or superstitious. Their worship was not mythical fantasy. As for other planets, including Earth, all of them possess souls, and ancient astrology was by no means superstition. S revealed, what affects the fate of humanity is not the planets themselves, but the magnetic forces released by the spirits of the celestial bodies. So this answers a question. Why are those distant planets so closely connected to us humans? Because the fates of both are governed by higher beings. Then, Mr. S continued to speak about the predictive abilities of beings in the spiritual realm. He said it all starts with human thoughts. Everything humans do is governed and directed by their minds. Is that wrong? However, ideas do not actually originate from our material world, but from a higher level. An idea exists in their world before it appears in our minds. Therefore, they know what we intend to act upon before we do it. From a macro perspective, the activity of all humanity is the same. It is like a film, and souls like Mr. S can clearly see the pre-written script. As for us humans, we are both actors and audience members, with the various changes in the world unfolding according to the script, under the command of our very own thoughts. However, S also admitted that sometimes time estimates are inaccurate. As I just mentioned, they exist in different dimensions from ours, and the concept of time differs between the two sides, so there can be discrepancies during the conversion. Moreover, due to the moral decline of humanity and the ever-changing nature of people, sometimes the script must be adjusted slightly, and certain local events will change. Therefore, S said, please don't judge us too harshly when our prophecies don't fully come true. S only clarified his mistakes as a scientist not long after his death. The large amount of revealed truths truly opened people's eyes. Alongside scientist S, another famous figure also appeared in the diary of the psychic boy M, U.S. President Wilson during World War I. Mr. Wilson proposed 14 principles for peace after the war, hoping to prevent another world war from occurring. These included no secret diplomacy, freedom of navigation, the removal of barriers to international trade, arms reduction, and the establishment of international alliances to maintain world peace. These principles later became the guiding platform of the Paris Peace Conference. Wilson was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919 for his proposal to establish a League of Nations. However, the elder told the boy that Wilson's 14 points of peace were actually inspired by higher beings from another dimension. They wanted to help humanity maintain peace, so they chose Wilson, a man of lifelong faith, to deliver the message. M felt that Wilson himself might not have known this, although during World War I, M had once or twice seen his soul in the higher realm. It was unfortunate that humanity did not follow the will of these higher beings. Those anti-war principles ultimately could not be carried out. M wrote in his diary that the defeated nation would seek revenge, but he would not live to see that day. World War II eventually broke out, fulfilling M's prophecy, but by then he was no longer among the living. M had begun writing his diary at the age of 6. Throughout his entire life, he carefully safeguarded it. It was only after his death that his widow, following his final wish, sent the diary to Cyril Scott, a renowned British composer and mystic, for publication. Scott was deeply impressed after reading it and believed the diary was truly worth sharing with the world. Not only was the content very easy to understand and read, sincere and fascinating, but the author himself was a man of integrity and righteousness. Throughout his life, from birth onward, he had never used his natural gifts and psychic abilities to seek fame or fortune, nor to engage in any ignoble act. According to what was recorded in the diary, M, from a very young age, could see different auras surrounding people and frequently saw a figure resembling Jesus Christ. Later, Jesus told him that he had been M's teacher in many lifetimes, and M could call him the Elder. The Jesus that M saw was merely an illusory image created to help him absorb teachings. Therefore, this Elder appeared frequently in M's diary, serving as a guiding light. As M grew older, his special psychic abilities began to strengthen. He could freely communicate with beings from other dimensions and even sense a person's past and future. But his parents didn't understand, and that once made him very sad. Fortunately, his family had a tutor named Mr. Palmer who appeared at the right time. Mr. Palmer not only believed in him, but also explored the truth behind his psychic powers together with him, accepting the teachings from the Elder and other higher beings. Regarding the aura emitted from the human body, in 1939, Soviet scientist S.V. Kirlian used a high-frequency electrography technique to capture fascinating images of the aura surrounding the human body. Since then, the phenomenon of human aura has become known to many people. Can the average person see that aura with the naked eye? And with his abilities, whose auras did M observe? First, it must be those in his family. M wrote in his diary that above his father's head was a golden aura resembling a chrysanthemum bloom. His mother's aura was blue, and his sister Mayer's body had a dim, cracked egg-like aura. She was also the only one in the family who argued with him the most. The light of his tutor, Mr. Palmer, was beautiful, golden with a touch of pink and hints of green and blue. As for the Elder, the aura surrounding him was even more magnificent. In his diary, M praised, "His aura was incredibly beautiful, gold, pink, blue, green, yellow, like the rainbow we saw from the window last time." Over time, he began to figure out some patterns. For example, if someone's aura was dirty and cloudy, it meant they were in a state of total loss of control, as if they had lost their mind. If someone's aura had sharp corners and angles, it indicated the person was stubborn and inflexible. When a person's heart was filled with love, their aura would turn pink. This was the case when his mother hugged him, and it was also true of his cousin Annie, who was about to get married. It seems there's a reason why pink is considered the color of romance and love. Aside from the Elder who resembled Jesus, his late grandfather also often came to visit him, wearing the same clothes he had worn in life. His grandfather told him many secrets unknown to ordinary people and always had answers for the strange questions M asked. For instance, among his friends, only Arnold didn't laugh at him for seeing spirits. Moreover, Arnold posed a tricky question. If M could see the spirits of the deceased, why were they still wearing clothes? Isn't it said that people can't take anything with them when they die? Clothes aren't souls like humans, so how can their owners bring them to the other side? M was confused by this too. So how did his grandfather answer? He laughed and said that in his world, everyone could appear however they wanted, instantly. If they wanted to look younger, they would immediately appear young. It was only so the boy could recognize him that his grandfather made himself look like an old man. This, in fact, isn't hard to explain. You see, all of us have our own avatars on social media in the virtual world. Many people borrow the image of celebrities, just like the Elder borrowed the image of Jesus. Some people use their own image so that others can recognize them, just like M's grandfather. Then his grandfather turned the question back to him. Try to imagine going everywhere without wearing any clothes. Would that be okay? The boy answered, "Of course not." His grandfather nodded and said, "Right, we can't do that." So they also need to imagine clothing for themselves. have an idiom called heavenly clothing without seams, which means that the garments worn by celestial beings bear no traces of stitching. They are naturally formed, created by heaven itself. Now, can everyone understand the reason? Because the clothes of heavenly beings are not sewn, but imagined into existence. In ancient times, our ancestors believed themselves to be descendants of the divine, so in all things they followed and learned from the gods. Naturally, human clothing was also modeled after that of deities. To achieve the effect of seamless heavenly garments, the cutting and tailoring of clothing was kept extremely simple, usually cut from one piece. Once the scissors finished cutting, the general shape of the entire outfit would already emerge. In the sewing process, it was especially important that no thread marks be visible. Sleeve cuffs and hems were sewn along the edges, and needles were inserted from the back side so that the stitching could not be seen from the front. At the seams, the hidden needle technique was used, with each stitch carefully concealed within the joint of the fabric. Traditionally, garments like the qipao and high-end ao dai are made to conceal their seams. If you asked a tailor why, they might not know the answer. In fact, many aspects of our ancient traditions have roots going back a long way. We've discussed souls in previous videos and already have some idea of what they might look like. But have you ever wondered what we look like in the eyes of a soul? Grandfather said, "To us, humans appear as vague and ethereal as spirits." This answer was completely unexpected for both M and Mr. Palmer. A tutor present was also stunned. "That's impossible. Aren't we tangible beings that can be seen and touched?" Why would Grandfather say otherwise? We believe his answer makes some sense. Since souls dwell on a higher plane, perhaps they only see the spiritual essence of who we are. What's your take on this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. For now, goodbye everyone, and don't forget to watch our upcoming videos on the channel.